Hi all, thanks so much for joining. This is PHL Pre-K contracts training for FY 2024. This session is geared toward new providers. I am Carrie Lee. I am the contracts manager with PHMC. We are the PHL Pre-K intermediary. You'll also hear from our contracts coordinator, Brittany Maines, and also Thea Margulies. Just a few housekeeping items. Please have your phones and microphones muted. Please type any questions into the chat box. We will have several breaks along the way to answer questions. And this presentation is being recorded. We'll send out the recording and slides through the weekly newsletter that comes out on Friday. For our agenda today, first you'll hear from the Office of Children and Families. Then we'll tell you a little bit more about PHMC as the administrative intermediary. You'll hear from Spark, the Quality Support Center, but we'll spend the majority of the time on contract deliverables, going over each deliverable in full detail. Then we'll round out with next steps and some reminders about upcoming deadlines. But first, I will throw it over to Denise from the Office of Children and Families.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. My name is Denise Bermudez, and I am the director of the PHL Pre-K program for the Office of Children and Families at the City of Philadelphia. And we're thrilled to be here with you today and excited to have you as a new provider. We are very happy to share with you today some important information regarding the PHL Pre-K program contract. But what I'm here to do is share a little bit more about the actual program. I'd like to start off first by talking a little bit about the history. The Philadelphia program, PHL Pre-K, launched in January of 2017 and is funded by the beverage tax. The program started with free pre-K to 2,000 children at 89 locations across the city. And this school year, we'll be serving 5,250 children at 227 locations. And that's exciting because since the launch of the program that we've been able to serve over 16,000 students and families. And then the program is 5.5 hours of daily instruction for 180 days over 10 months. The next thing I want to talk about is our mission, and our mission is to increase access to quality early learning by offering free pre-kindergarten programs to children regardless of their family's income. And we do that by committing to a number of priorities. The very first commitment we have is to increase center quality and providing instructional resources. Second, we are offering health resources and providing resources for conducting developmental screenings. We're supporting staff development and growth. And then last but not least, we're promoting kindergarten registration and transition activities. So next, I'd like to expand a little bit about the growth of the program. Over the last 7 years, the program has grown very quickly. And as I said before, we went from 2,000 children in the first year at January 2017 to 5,250 this year. And from last year to this year, that's a growth of 950 new seats since the last school year. And overall, the growth is 163%. And that does make PHL Pre-K the fastest growing publicly funded pre-K in the country. And obviously, seat expansion is important, but the quality of those seats is just as important when we're thinking about high quality experiences for children. And that's why you're going to see here in this chart that we made sure that we're operating programs in high quality centers, which in the initial year went from 56% in the first year to 94% high quality providers this year, which is an exponential amount of growth. The new seats that are Star 1 and Star 2 will continue to be supported by the Spark Quality Support Center to increase those star levels within the school year. And that is one of the investments that we make here. And then I'd like to discuss a little bit about the breakdown in demographics of the system. So we have 85% of families who identify as non-white, and then 70% are identifying as 200% below the federal poverty line. And then there are 15% of the families who speak languages other than English at home. And then we operate in 43 zip codes and 64 locations that have 1,400 seats in priority zip codes. And then, of course, the most important thing to talk about here today is that we don't do this work alone. I want to take time to acknowledge those who are driving this important work with us. So first, we'd like to talk about the Spark Quality Support Center. Spark does exactly what the title implies. They provide support, they provide professional development as well as technical assistance to providers. And they do that in a way that is catered to each individual provider so that everyone provider is receiving the supports in a way that is beneficial to their specific needs as we take that equitable approach. We also have Public Health Management Corporation, PHMC, who is leading this meeting today. They are the PHL Pre-K program administrative intermediary, and they are responsible for your contracts, the accountability of those contracts, and payments to the providers, among a number of other things that they do for the program. And then finally, the School District Philadelphia, we partner with them as well, and they provide quality supports, and they are the contract entity for a subset of PHL Pre-K providers. I think that's it. So with all that said, thanks for your time today. Thank you for being here. We hope that today's session is informative. And if you have any questions during those times where we open up the questions, just let us know. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Now you're going to hear from Joy Weems from PHMC. She's our provider service manager.
Thanks, Carrie. So I will explain some key functions of the administrative intermediary, which is PHMC. One of our primary roles is to be responsible for contracts. This includes issuing your notice of awards, allocating your seats, and then also issuing your full contract. We are also responsible for overseeing enrollment, which includes approving enrollments, verifying enrollments, monitoring enrollment, benchmarks and targets, and then also reallocating slots if necessary. We also are responsible for making sure that you get paid on a timely basis. And so we disperse payments to you monthly. And we also oversee what we call a supplemental funding process, which is some additional funding that we try to issue in the spring part of the year. We also are responsible for data collection, management, and analysis, which means that we collect all of the data in the system, and then we kind of look at that data, we review it, we pull out any trends and highlights so that we can use that information to support you better. We're also responsible for fiscal and compliance monitoring. So this includes all of your fiscal reports, which you will hear about during today's training, as well as ensuring that you are in compliance with your contract. PHMC is also very intentional about partnering with the Office of Children and Families, with the Spark Quality Support Center, as well as organizations outside of PHL Pre-K to ensure that we are providing the best supports possible. And finally, PHMC is also responsible for any program reporting. Again, this involves collecting the data and then reporting out on any outcomes that we see so we can, again, hold up those highlights, hold up those trends, and better support the system. Next slide. Thanks. So as Carrie said, my role is provider services manager, and I support the provider services team. And this team includes your provider service specialist. Your provider service specialist is your primary point person for PHL Pre-K. If you have any questions or concerns or just need anything, typically you will reach out to your provider service specialist. And if they're not the person to answer that question, then they will direct you to the right person or the right organization. We also within our team make sure that you get timely based payments. And these payments are based on enrollment and attendance. The specialist will send you an invoice on the 1st of the month, and we ask that you submit an invoice by the 10th of the month. However, I always recommend that you submit your signed invoice by the 5th or 6th in case there's any discrepancies, and then we can get those discrepancies resolved and make sure that you get timely payment. Your specialist will also help you understand the contract because as you will hear today, there's a lot of information to remember. But if you have any questions about it, if there's something that you don't understand, your specialist will be able to support you with that. Your specialist is also going to visit your program. So you will get an in-person site visit quarterly. And then you will get monthly check-ins from your specialist. And these visits and check-ins are really just to make sure that you are staying on track with the contract. It's also to see if you need anything, if you need any additional support. And based on those conversations, we may refer you to the Quality Support Center, which is our last bullet. While PHMC is really responsible for managing the compliance of the program, if you are struggling with something or you need additional support, we partner with the Quality Support Center to ensure that you get the support that you need. So again, please feel free to reach out to your provider service specialist. You should have received a welcome letter by now. We also are conducting initial site visits this month of July. So you should have heard or will be hearing from someone very soon. And then also, I just want to share some contact information for the intermediary. If you have any general inquiries, you can email phlpk@phmc.org, and our main line is on the screen. If you have questions about childcare, which I believe everyone should have attended a childcare training at this point, but if you have any questions, please email servicedesk@phmc.org, and our hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. If you have site-specific contract questions, again, reach out to your assigned specialist. If you can't reach your specialist, reach out to the coordinator, and you should have received information about the coordinator as well. And finally, if you have families who are interested in enrolling, please share our email with them, which is phprek@phmc.org. Our main intake number is on the line, and the hours of operation for our intake line is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Thanks, Carrie. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Joy. And now we'll hear from Dina Short from the Spark Quality Support Center.
Thank you, Carrie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dina Short, Deputy Director of Coaching and Quality Supports at Spark. Next slide, please. So at Spark Quality Support Center, our office is made up of coaching and specialists. Our specialists are in charge of developing our content for our professional development opportunities. There is coaching that will follow up on our professional development. There is our knowledge center, where I will speak to in further slides, our help desk, and our events calendar. There's multiple ways to engage with us. Next slide. As I said, our office is made up of the PHL pre-K coaches. We provide many resources. We will help establish understanding of the why behind the requirements. And just so that you know, there is an initial site visit and intake process to outline our surveys, our services for your needs. So our services are customized for your needs. Also, I mentioned earlier that there are specialists that is within our team, and they develop the content, our content for our professional development opportunities. Next slide. I mentioned the Knowledge Center. This is the first page of our Knowledge Center. On our Knowledge Center, you will find many resources, articles that you can use for staff, parent meetings. There is a lot of resources on our Knowledge Center, and I strongly encourage everyone to visit our Knowledge Center. Also on our website, you will find our events calendar. This is where you will find all of our professional development opportunities. There are many that are going on right now. Please visit our events calendar. It's very easy to use. You choose a professional development opportunity that you like to attend, click on it, register, and you're in. So please visit us. Here is our contact information. There is our website, our help desk, phone number, and email. Please contact us. We are here to support you as you implement PHL Pre-K. We have a lot of resources and cohorts that are starting right now that you are able to tap in to start PHL off right. So please contact us, send us an email, or pick up the phone and call us. We are here to support. Thank you.
Thanks, Dina. All right, so let's dive into the PHL pre-K contract deliverables. Some of this we did go over at the exhibits information session, but wanted you to give you the full scope of all of the contract deliverables at one time. And as a reminder, we will have to take questions along the way. We'll have some breaks, so please enter any questions that you might have, okay? So here is the full list of deliverables that we'll go over today. We know that there are some returning providers on this session, so we'll be sure to highlight where there are changes from last year for you all as well. So for the full list of deliverables, we'll talk today about licensing and STARS in good standing, religious affiliation and discrimination, adhering to health and safety guidance, growth providers and needing to move to STAR 3 by the end of the program year, enrollment and recruitment, eligibility and conversion, attendance, full day, full year services, curriculum, outcomes assessment and developmental screenings, remote learning, ways to partner with families, suspension and expulsion, kindergarten transition, health assessment and standards, data management, requirements for meeting and training participation and complying with monitoring and reporting requests, termination, all the staff qualifications, Philadelphia 21st century minimum wage benefit and City of Philadelphia compliance, and then those fiscal items, invoicing and fiscal reporting. So now I will pass it over to Brittany Maines, who will start you off with the contract deliverables.
Thank you, Carrie, and good afternoon, everyone. I will be telling a portion of the contract deliverables for you today. So our first deliverable will be detailing the DHS license and compliance regulations. You as new providers must maintain a Department of Human Service or Philadelphia Department of Education license in good standing for your approved PHL pre-K location. If you as a provider receive a provisional license throughout the calendar year, you are still able to operate and provide PHL pre-K services. Please note, you must contact the contract entity of any significant findings pertaining to your classroom or site location within 30 days of notification. If any PHL pre-K staff see a violation, you must report it to the appropriate governing agency. Rescinding and contract void. A provider's contract can be rescinded or voided for several reasons. These reasons include receiving a provisional license before the issuance of a PHL pre-K contract document, a negative sanction that results in your facility closing, a violation that results in the emergency removal of children, or fraud is to be discovered in the obtaining of a DHS license. OCF and the contract entity need to be notified immediately if any of these occur, and we will support families for relocation. Providers need to self-report any PA DHS violation within 48 hours to Octal and to PHMC or the School District of Philadelphia. Such violations could include an injury at your center requiring emergency room treatment or inpatient hospitalization, a death of a child receiving care at your facility, a verified incident of child abuse or neglect, fire safety, pediatric first aid, and or water safety resulting in STAR suspension. Religious affiliation and discrimination. Providers with any religious affiliation may still offer programming in accordance to your beliefs. However, you may not deny a child's enrollment based on that religious affiliation. You must let families choose to opt out of any religious programming. You cannot provide religious instruction during the 5.5 hours of PHL pre-K school day. Providers shall not discriminate or permit discrimination against any child, staff member, or potential employment candidate because of race, ethnicity, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, national origin, ancestry, disability, marital status, familial status, or domestic or sexual violence victim status. Adherence to health and safety guidance in childcare settings. There has been a change since last year. All references to COVID have been removed from the PHL pre-K contract as COVID-19 emergency ended May 11th, 2023. As a new provider, you will be expected to review and adhere to health and safety guidance from the Centers of Disease Control, the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, and the City of Philadelphia's Department of Public Health concerning any future emergencies that may arise. You are still required to report positive COVID cases by way of the Department of Health. Program quality. Current Star 3 and Star 4 providers need to maintain good standing in stars. All growth providers must ensure that they are using resources to achieve Star 3 or Star 4 and complying with the deadlines as seen below. Providers need to request designation at Star 3 no later than June 28th, 2024. Benchmarks will be reviewed with data from the ELRC, and any sites that do not make progress towards their benchmarks may be ineligible to receive PHL pre-K funding beyond the fiscal year. Enrollment and recruitment. Much of the information should be familiar as we did review this in enrollment training. As a provider, you need to develop and maintain an enrollment and recruitment plan. You need to maintain 100% enrollment with a wait list of eligible applicants in your childcare. You must enroll and discharge children per the requirements and procedures outlined in the FY24 PHL pre-K enrollment provider policy. As a provider, you need to work with the families to determine if their program is a good fit and it's a good fit for the family as well as their individual needs and priorities. You may not require any additional application information in advance of enrollment in the PHL pre-K program or associated with the PHL pre-K services. This may include requesting fees or supply lists, lunches, trips, uniforms, etc. Next would be the enrollment analysis. Providers must meet enrollment targets. Need to be at 50% by August 31st, 2023, and 100% enrollment by September 29, 2023. Sites that have seats that are vacant for 30 days or more will be contacted and asked to develop a recruitment plan. Referrals may be made to Spark if assistance is needed. Additionally, OCF will determine if and when reallocation of PHL pre-K site seats may be necessary. And at that time, current enrollment and waitlist status may be taken into consideration. Slot vacancy and reallocation. As I just mentioned previously, if slot reallocation occurs, PHMC will support families with PHL pre-K eligible children in finding another location. Increases in slot allocations will be prioritized to sites that meet the following criteria. Are Star 3 or Star 4 level, have 100% enrollment and have an active waitlist in childcare, can attest that the new slot in the classroom meets the PHL pre-K requirements, including required staff to child ratios and qualified staff. Please note that all requests for additional seats can be sent to our inbox. It's phlprek@phmc.org. Next, we have eligibility, slot conversion, and supplanting. This is one of the trickier areas that you as providers may have questions on. So we just really want to emphasize that you reach out to your specialists as well as the PHL pre-K inbox. In respect to eligibility, children are eligible if they are 3 or 4 years old, on or by September 1st of the enrollment year, and will reside in the city of Philadelphia. Children may age into PHL pre-K if they are currently enrolled as a 2-year-old and will be 3 years of age by September 1st, 2023. Additionally, if a child turned 3 after September 1st last year and never participated in an additional funding source, such as Head Start or pre-K counts at their respective PHL pre-K location, they may enroll. So additional slot conversion and supplanting, children who are age eligible and currently receiving pre-K programming, which is being funded by alternative sources, cannot be converted into PHL pre-K funding. Providers, you may not convert infant and toddler slots to PHL pre-K slots, as well as convert any Head Start or pre-K counts into PHL pre-K slots. For our next deliverable will be the attendance policy. You as providers must maintain an attendance policy. Your policy needs to include overall developing strategies to help maintain 85% average daily attendance. The goal of maintaining 85% for all children is because we know this supports their learning and their development. If you are seeing your children fall below this level, you as providers need to reach out to the families that understand why and if they need any support to overcome any barriers. Additionally, there needs to be clear procedures that deliver and document the support that remediates chronic and consecutive absence issues that could arise. Providers, we want to emphasize that your policy ultimately establishes a guided support and resources to family when absences are due to hardships. Slots will be held for 30 days for children who have an improved extended absence due to a long-term illness. Providers, you need to understand that you cannot discharge a child without making every effort to communicate with families and assist in overcoming any barriers. With the attendance policy comes attendance monitoring. Attendance should be monitored using sign-in and sign-out-like procedures. Providers need to enter attendance weekly into the childware system, as well as keeping supporting documentation for compliance purposes. Providers need to review their average daily attendance monthly, and if it falls below 85%, such considerations should be made. What challenges might my families be facing? Is there a pattern? How can or will we assist families? Providers, we need you to stick to your policy communications and use the timelines and strategies as a guided resource. Some additional attendance monitoring specifics. If a child is expected to be absent for more than 30 days or has consecutive absences approaching 30 days, you as providers need to notify your contract entity and the administrative intermediary to review this case. Providers, you will be asked to submit documentation of regular communication with the families during the period of absences. So it is highly recommended that you keep and use a variety of communication strategies, even if the families are not responsive. The contract entity, intermediary, and OCF will review these cases on a case-by-case scenario. Please do note that in these circumstances, the PHL pre-K invoicing policy will still apply. If and or when a child is discharged, providers, you will have 60 days to fill the seat. Failure to comply with these steps may result in PHMC not continuing to fund that PHL pre-K slot and you as a provider not receiving payment. Our next contract deliverable is the program calendar, which is also one of your exhibits. Providers, you should schedule a minimum of 180 days of PHL pre-K services between September 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Please note that early dismissal days do not count towards the 180-day requirement. And additionally, any snow days or provider scheduled cancellations must be made up to ensure the full number of days are met. Our next deliverable is the daily schedule, another exhibit that is due July 31st. There should be 5.5 hours per day of developmentally appropriate instructional time in each PHL pre-K day. That needs to include at least 60 minutes of physical activity as well. What's not included in the 5.5 hours is arrival, departure, and nap time. If any part of the PHL pre-K day occurs before 7:30 a.m. or spans after 4:30 p.m., you as providers need to inform your specialists as well as provide written requests to PHMC for approval from OCF prior to your classroom opening. All your requests should be submitted to our inbox. That's phlprek@phmc.org. Right, so full day and full year services. It is recommended to you as providers to partner with other agencies for full day and full year services. This will help assist your families with access to additional funding or childcare needs that they might have. Providers, you need to maintain a childcare works contract to implement before or after care services. Childcare works. As I just mentioned, the importance of you as providers maintaining a childcare works contract. If family needs full day, full year, and are interested in childcare works, then families need to reach out to the CCW in order to be determined if they are eligible. They can apply through the Compass portal, or they can contact their local ELRC center. We want to emphasize providers that you only need to fill out the PHL pre-K enrollment verification form after your families have been determined eligible by the CCW and they've selected your site as their location. This form needs to be updated if there are any changes and or if your child leaves the program. Right, and so the last deliverable I'll be detailing with you will be the curriculum. Providers, you need to implement programming based on the required PHL curriculum, creative curriculum. Curriculum kits have been delivered to your sites and classrooms, and if not, you'll be receiving them by early August. PHL pre-K teaching staff and program leadership are supported through quality support services that are available from our Spark Quality Support Center. The School District of Philadelphia providers can access supports as needed from the district instead. If you as providers intend on using a supplemental curriculum, creative curriculum must be the primary curriculum in use for the 180 days of PHL pre-K service and will align with the creative curriculum. The supplemental curriculum needs to be on the Ocdale list of curricular alignments to the 2014 Pennsylvania Learning Standards for early childhood as well, as respond to documented developmental needs for the children in the classroom. This list has been recently updated as of July 1st of this year, 2023. So now we'll stop for questions before Theo comes on to continue with your deliverables. Thank you all.
Do we have any questions? You can feel free to type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. Doesn't seem like we have any right now, so we'll keep moving along, but we will have 2 more opportunities to stop for questions. So if you do have any, please type in the chat box, okay?
All right, so the first deliverable that I will be going over is the Outcomes Assessment Teaching Strategies Gold. So for Teaching Strategies Gold Outcome Assessment, observation records for each PHL pre-K child must reflect all months of service when children are in care and each domain of development as outlined in TSG. Each child should have a minimum of 1 documented observation in every dimension per checkpoint timeframe and a minimum of 2 family conferences to discuss progress and set educational goals. The record of child progress using TSG's online data tool should be reviewed twice per year. The checkpoints have changed this year. Last year they were fall and spring, and this year they will be winter and spring. For returning providers, TSG licensing will roll over from last year and is available in July, which is this month. And then for new providers, licensing will be effective August 1st. Your account will be covered by PHMC for only your PHL pre-K children, and you should receive an email shortly to be able to access your account. It's important that your contact form is up to date, because on that form, we ask who your TSG administrator is, and we want to make sure that we're giving the right person access. The next deliverable is the developmental screening, which is ASQ online. We wanted to give you a heads up that we will be moving to ASQ online this year, so you can record developmental screening information there. And this applies only to your PHL pre-K seats. We've already received some questions asking for clarification on that. So we just wanted to emphasize that ASQ online only applies to PHL pre-K seats. ASQ3 and ASQ SE kits have already been ordered for new classrooms, and Spark coaches will be coordinating delivery with you in the coming weeks. You will need to complete at least one developmental screening reflecting all domains of development for each child annually within 45 calendar days of the child's program start date. You will need to share information with families within 14 days of completion and refer any child with an identified concern to Elwyn for assessment. Providers will also need to document their referral to Elwyn and the receipt of parent permission to refer within 7 calendar days of the conversation with the families. And you will need to re-screen per tool guidelines if there is a concern identified. Children with IEPs are exempt from this requirement if their current IEP is in their file and also in childware. For children with an IEP, programs may be asked to complete an ASQ SE if there is a request of ECMH services. So this is just a sample of what a timeline might look like for a program depending on the start date. So in this example, if their program starts on September 5th, then developmental screening should be completed by October 20th, which is within 45 calendar days. You should share results with families by November 2nd, which is 2 weeks after completion, and refer to Elwyn by November 9th, which is 7 days after the conversation with the family. So the next deliverable is curriculum assessment and developmental screening waivers. So as mentioned in the exhibits info session, waivers can be submitted to use an alternative curriculum or tool. Waivers must be submitted to PHMC and be approved prior to the program start. Links to waivers were sent through the weekly provider update, and they need to be submitted by July 31st. For curriculum and assessment waivers, there is a change since last year. Providers no longer need to participate in PHL pre-K for a year to be eligible to submit a waiver. For developmental screening waivers, providers do need to participate in PHL pre-K for a year to be eligible. Alternate curriculum or tools must be on the approved OCDL list, and those lists are listed on the slide below. Providers that are approved for waivers are expected to be responsible for meeting PHL pre-K benchmarks, cover any training costs, TA, or coaching needed to implement it within their programs. Waivers may also be rescinded if providers aren't able to maintain 100% compliance in meeting benchmarks. The next deliverable is remote learning. So PHL pre-K services are expected to be offered in person for FY24 and have a remote learning plan in preparation for any emergency closures. A program may not offer remote learning without an approved remote learning plan. The change here this year is that you do not have to have a remote learning plan if you don't plan on offering remote learning. However, if you do not offer remote learning during an emergency closure, then you may not bill for those closed days. Remote learning plans will require approval by OCF prior to the program start. All providers must confirm their plans for remote learning in the Cognito form by August 15th. In the form, a provider will say whether they are submitting a new plan, updating their existing plan, uploading their school district approved remote learning plan, or indicating that they will not offer remote learning. We will send a link to the forum in follow-up communications. And even if you are not planning on offering remote learning, you will still need to complete the Cognito form to let us know that you are not uploading a plan. The next deliverable is family agreement. So it is important for providers to have a written agreement with families that outlines services to be provided, fees associated with any services outside of PHL Pre-K, and the expectation of families. There's a DHS template on this slide, and on this slide is also what must be included in that agreement. Family partnership. So providers should communicate regularly with families or caregivers using various methods. This includes creating systems for reporting about a child's progress and getting feedback, using languages and platforms family can access, and providing ways to help them in planning events, trainings, or workshops. Providers should have a family grievance policy that outlines the process to address their concerns, and this is an exhibit you should be submitting soon if you haven't already. Providers should also work with OCF to deploy resources to PHL Pre-K families and support the distribution and completion of the year-end family satisfaction survey. Now onto the inclusion policy. You should have an inclusion policy in your family and staff handbook that addresses enrolling children with special needs, providing direct supports through the program and ELWIN, staff supports, and procedures for referral. Providers cannot deny enrollment or waitlist opportunities to any family eligible for PHL Pre-K. Suspension and expulsion. Providers are not permitted to suspend or expel a child. You must have a suspension and expulsion policy, which we talked about at the exhibits info session. And this is another exhibit you should be submitting shortly if you haven't done so already. At the bottom of this slide are the Octal definitions of suspension and expulsion for you to use as a reference. If a provider determines that an enrolled child poses a risk to the safety or well-being of other children or staff, you will need to communicate this concern to PHMC and their contract entity. You should work to develop an intervention or transition plan that engages the family and that supports the well-being and school readiness of the enrolled child. Providers must implement a system of documenting behaviors and strategies to support the child and their family. If folks need support in developing their suspension and expulsion policy, Sparks Quality Support Center can assist you with that. Also, a change from last year is that we are now requiring a training by the Education Law Center. It's being offered a couple of times in August, and there will also be more trainings available in the fall. This training is part of the system-wide response to the increase in challenging behaviors, and this training is specifically to help you understand what the law is. The next deliverable is kindergarten transition. So we want to make sure that all providers are engaging families to help them understand their educational options. The School District of Philadelphia has established age requirements for kindergarten eligibility, and transition plans are needed for all children turning 5 by the school district age requirement for the following year. So kindergarten transition plans need to be created within 60 days of a child's entry date. It will document activities scheduled throughout the program year to support transition to kindergarten and to ensure the child is registered for kindergarten by June 1st. Kindergarten transition meetings need to be held with families to discuss educational options by January 1st. This is to ensure families receive information about catchment and out of catchment deadlines, and OCF typically develops resources to share with families that include school district and charter deadlines. You will need to confirm kindergarten transition is completed for each applicable child and document where the child will be attending school in childcare by May 31st. The next deliverable is health assessment. So providers need to verify that at least one health assessment is not over a year old, and documentation should be kept in that child's file. Providers will participate in initiatives identified by OCF to ensure children enrolled in PHL Pre-K have access to health screenings. Children should not be denied access to PHL pre-K or discharged if those screenings are not up to date. Appropriate health and nutrition standards. Providers should provide nutritious meals and snacks every day and adhere to age-appropriate nutritional requirements from a recognized authority. And providers are strongly encouraged to participate in CACFP for those nutritional requirements. Providers should be familiar with the Philadelphia Nutrition Standards for ECE, and those standards are linked on the slide. The standards around physical activity, screen time, and offering clean, safe water remain the same from last year. And these standards include offering 60 to 90 minutes of physical activity and limiting screen time to 30 minutes or less per week for children ages 2 and older. Providers also need to offer clean, safe drinking water. Childcare facilities with 13 or more children must test all potable water outlets for lead and submit results to the Department of Public Health. There's a link on this slide to read more about the city requirement. The state has a program to provide free water testing and expert support to childcare facilities and schools within Pennsylvania, and the link for that is also on the slide as well. It is also encouraged that providers set goals and develop strategies to ensure that fried foods are not offered more than 2 times a week. The next deliverable is data management, record keeping, and communication. Providers will use multiple databases as a PHL pre-K provider to enter staff, child, and site level data. To ensure timely and accurate data is collected, providers need to develop systems for data entry, quality assurance, and resource allocation, such as time, staff, and technology. The systems that you will use are Childware for enrollment and attendance, the PD Registry for staff qualifications, Teaching Strategies Gold for outcomes assessment, and ASQ for developmental screening. You should think about how you're going to keep these systems, how you're going to manage these systems and keep them up to date as we do monitor them. To ensure compliance with PHL pre-K deliverables and to remain current with PHL pre-K policies, procedures, and information, providers should attend PHL pre-K sponsored meetings and applicable trainings, such as summer trainings, peer learning circles, childware trainings, or other trainings related to PHL pre-K priorities. Curriculum and outcome assessment trainings are required for lead teachers and administrators who have not taken the training previously, and there also may be other required trainings added throughout the year. PHL pre-K providers are expected to comply with all monitoring and reporting requests made, participate in quality improvement activities when recommended, participate in the data collection and evaluation activities, including external evaluator NEAR, and quality support, such as TA or coaching as recommended or directed by OCF or its designees, and also to participate in at least one in-person coaching visit with the Spark Quality Support Center. So now we're going to take another break for any questions.
Do we have any questions now? I don't see any in the chat box. Dina has put in information about Spark there. So Marsh is asking, although ASQ is moving to online, will we still need to retain a paper copy? So we will be communicating about the specifics of ASQ online very shortly. We'll send that out about logistics and all the requirements that you will or will not need to do. Sure, LaTonta, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to confirm what I heard about students who have IEPs already. I just want to make sure that we're not doing an additional ASQ, or they're just, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. I think I missed something.
So I think you're referring about the developmental screening for those with IEPs, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I think it's, from our understanding, STARS may require you to do SQ on all your children, regardless of whether they have an IEP or not. So let us follow up on that, and we can report back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Are there any other questions? Okay, let's keep moving along, but continue to type your questions in, and we'll have another opportunity at the end to go over questions again as well. So here are compliance definitions for your reference. They illustrate the levels of written notification that we send out if there is a compliance concern. Notifications can range from a quality improvement plan to a notice of termination. Now, if any of these items on this slide happen, it may result in terminating the contract. As we mentioned before, failure to maintain good standing for your DHS or PDE license, failure to get and maintain appropriate insurance coverages. If a provider has unresolved noncompliance with the notice of default, or if providers have egregious areas of noncompliance that relate to jeopardizing the health and safety of children, preventing or restricting access to PHL pre-K services, creating undue hardships for families enrolled in PHL pre-K, or compromising PHL program integrity and public message, or impacting the accuracy of payment for PHL pre-K services. And if terminated, a provider may be ineligible to reapply for the program until at least a year from the termination date, and that would need to be in an active RFQ cycle. If a provider receives a notice of default, they can submit a written appeal. It must be made within 10 business days of the noncompliance notification, and should really include supporting documentation that demonstrates their compliance. OCF, PHMC, and the contract entity, where applicable, will respond to the written appeal within 20 business days. And a final written decision from OCF will be binding. If the appeal is submitted without written documentation showing compliance, then the notice of default and timeline will stand. Here is information on staff qualifications. This we went over in the exhibits information session as well. PHL pre-K credentials are aligned with the state's career pathway. So for a childcare center, director, administrator, and lead teacher, you must have a minimum of a level B on the career pathway. This also applies to owner operators and family providers acting as lead teachers. And assistant teachers need to have a minimum of a level A or above. For school district employees, those directors, administrators, lead teachers, and assistant teachers at direct school district locations, those are those who are school district of Philadelphia employees. They must meet the staff qualifications set forth by the district. Staff at other school district contracted sites. So those are those community-based providers under the school district entity. You must meet qualifications for PHL pre-K that are above. And here's similar information that I just went over. So on the left-hand chart, you'll see directors, administrators, family childcare owner operators, and lead teachers need to be at that level B. And assistant teachers need to be at the level A. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the career pathway levels and what is required. So in a level A, staff will need to meet one of those requirements to qualify as a level A. So they'll need to either hold a current CDA certificate, have a current school age credential, or have 9 ECE credits. For staff to qualify as a level B, they'll need a regionally accredited ECE focused ASB or EST, an associate's in ECE, an associate's or bachelor's in a related field and have 18 ECE credits, have an associate or bachelor's in an unrelated field and 30 ECE credits, or have an elementary ed degree with 12 ECE credits. Substitute must have the appropriate credentials for the position that they're filling. When a sub serves as a lead teacher or an assistant teacher for more than 90 days, providers should develop a quality improvement plan addressing the program staffing plan and strategies for recruiting qualified staff. For family providers, this would be instances where the owner does not serve as the full-time lead teacher and has a substitute in that lead teacher role. All staff need to be entered into the PD registry and maintain a verified career pathway level. For new hires, you need to have them complete their profile and have a verified career pathway within 45 days of hire. So this is similar information we went over at the exhibits info session as well. We know over the years there have been some staffing challenges. So to address that, those OCF does have waivers available for staff qualifications for director, lead teacher, and assistant teacher. This also applies to the lead teacher position for family childcare in the case where the childcare owner operator does not serve as the full-time lead teacher. So in order to apply, you must have you meet the following criteria. That's have a verified career pathway level of rising level A that's verified in the PA key. It's verified by the PA key. Or if entry level, must apply for placement at rising level A once enrolled in an education program or course of study. You also must be active in the process of attaining the required EC credits or CDA certificate, be enrolled in the education program, or if not already enrolled, enroll no later than January 31st, 2024. You have to submit evidence of enrollment in the education program in the PD registry. And status of enrollment will be reviewed in January, and individuals that are not enrolled may have their waiver rescinded. If folks are applying for that assistant teacher waiver, individuals must obtain a CDA or 9 EC credits within 1 year from enrollment in the education program. And then all individuals need to meet DHS requirements for the position that they're holding. Individuals who had an approved waiver in the last program year and who have not completed requirements for meeting the career pathway level prior to September 1st of this year will need to reapply again for this year. They'll need to demonstrate that they're actively engaging in attaining the credential that would meet the appropriate pathway level. Here's some info about supporting documentation needed. And if requesting a waiver, you'll need to upload the documentation in the PD registry, demonstrating that staff is enrolled in an education program or course of study. So here's more information about the supporting documentation and examples of acceptable documentation as well. Individuals who are staff at PHL pre-K locations or PHL pre-K legal entities that may have met prior PHL requirements may qualify for a temporary exemption. This is mainly for those returning providers. The criteria are here. So for a director, administrator, family childcare owner, operator, and lead teachers. So individuals with an associate's or higher in a related field with fewer than 18 EC credits and who were employed at the PHL legal entity prior to July 1st, 2022 are eligible for that temporary exemption. In July 1st, 2022, this is when the PHL pre-K requirements changed to align with the state's career pathway. For assistant teachers, you're eligible if you have at least 6 EC credits, but fewer than 9 EC credits, and were employed at a PHL pre-K legal entity prior to July 1st, 2022. All these individuals should also have plans in place to ensure they're working towards meeting the current PHL pre-K credentials. For the Philadelphia 21st Century Minimum Wage Benefit, providers must comply with this for their PHL pre-K staff. This will increase this year to $15.71 this year. This applies only to staff directly related to PHL pre-K. There are exemptions, including agencies with 5 or fewer employees or nonprofits with a contract of less than $100,000. And if unable to meet this requirement, you may request a temporary waiver, but that needs to be submitted directly to the City of Philadelphia for approval. Providers need to maintain good standing as a vendor with the City of Philadelphia and fulfill all tax obligations, including city, state, and federal. We do monitor on city tax compliance monthly, and we'll send out those non-compliance notices every month. And providers also need to adhere to the City of Philadelphia general provisions, and those are going to be attachments in your contract. For invoicing, you may begin expending anticipated funds in July 2023. However, initial payments are dispersed after the first month of service in September. Providers receive $1,000 per approved enrollment if the child attended at least one day in the month, and an invoice can never exceed the total slot allocation. Provider payments are performed monthly using the enrollment count in Childware. Invoices are submitted across 10 months. That's October through July. They're submitted by the 10th of the month following the month of service. And as Joy mentioned in the very beginning of this, it's really recommended that you submit before the 10th. So like on the 5th or the 6th, so that if there are any discrepancies, those can resolve before the 10th to ensure a timely payment. Failure to submit invoices by the 10th could also result in a quality improvement plan. Payments to providers will be made within 20 days following approval of the invoice. Eligibility verification will occur within 60 days of enrollment, and recoup will occur for payments made for ineligible enrollments. In this program year for September and October, invoicing and payments will be based on total slot allocation. So the first invoicing period will be October 1st. So that would be due on the 10th. So again, this is the same as last year for those returning providers. In September and October, the invoicing will be based on your total slot allocation. There are several levels of review that occur for fiscal reporting. We will be holding a fiscal training session in the fall for providers. So we'll go over all the fiscal expectations in more detail and detail the financial systems that you should have in place. And also we'll tell you about the Spark supports available. For any fiscal reporting though, it's really important that providers submit on time. So in terms of the levels of review, we do have desk reviews. So PHMC performs a desk review for a 10% randomly selected sample of providers with annual PHL pre-K revenue below $300,000. Or also those providers that have been identified as having fiscal concerns. The desk review verifies adherence to PHL pre-K billing and also fiscal reporting guidelines. For the mid-year, all providers will be required to submit mid-year expense reports, and we'll communicate that out to you at the time with a template as well. For end-of-year expense reports, PHMC does request end-of-year expense reports for our providers with revenue below $300,000 that are not selected for that 10% desk review sample. And for just those on the session who are returning providers, we will be reaching out to you soon to talk about FY23 fiscal reporting. So look out for those communications. For those that need external reviews, the thresholds are similar to last year. For providers with $300,000 to below $500,000 in PHL pre-K revenue, and that's per legal entity, you'll need to have an external certified public accountant conduct an agreed upon procedure. For providers with $500,000 or more in PHL pre-K revenue per legal entity, you'll need to have an external audit in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards, which is often referred to a yellow book audit. For those with $750,000 or more in federal funding, you'll need to do a federal single audit. Now, if you fall into this category that you need to submit an external review, it's really important that you submit a separate PHL pre-K schedule that shows PHL pre-K funding and expenditures as well. The reporting period should also align with your program year, your fiscal year. So if your fiscal year ends on December 31st, that does cover 2 program years. So you would break out January to June of one program year and September to December of another program year. And finally, providers who need to complete external reviews, you must complete it 3 months from the close of books of your fiscal year and submit annually by October 30th of the following program year. There are some extensions available to submit for one time, but you must really have a compelling reason. You can submit for a 90-day one-time extension if it includes an engagement letter from your auditor, 30-day one-time extension if it does not include an engagement letter from your auditor. So that is the last of the contract deliverables, and we can stop again to see if there are any questions that you all may have. No questions so far. Let's just please type it in if you do have. Why don't we just go to the last slide that we have? Just a reminder about next steps for everybody and the upcoming deadlines that are creeping up on us soon. So exhibits will need to be submitted by July 31st, 2023. We saw many of you at the exhibits info session where we talked about our new system, Open Water, that you need to submit in. So please, we have those resources available, a tutorial on Open Water, also the recording of the exhibits training, plus the exhibits training checklist and guidelines in the provider update as well. So if you need those resources, please check out the provider update. For remote learning plans, we will be sending out communication soon in the provider update that will have a link to complete the remote learning plan form that will be due on August 15th. For waivers, the curriculum assessment and developmental screening waivers, those are also due on July 31st as well. Those links are the provider update, and Brittany just dropped them in, I think, earlier as well. For staff qualifications, the waiver for anyone currently on staff that needs a waiver, please get those in as soon as possible. We know you all may be hiring staff right now, so please get that in as soon as possible as you hire, but no later than 45 days after hire. And then we also have the contact information form that you should complete by July 31st as well. You can tell us the various contacts you have for things like contracts, invoicing, enrollment, all of that. Be sure to keep that updated because we send information to those contacts. So we know if you have any turnover, please be sure to update that contact form because we use that to send out information regularly. That is all we have for you. So we can take 1 minute to see if there are any further questions that you all may have. And again, this session will be in the provider update, the recording, as well as the slides. So if you can't tell by now, you should really be looking at that provider update regularly, as we often share a lot of information there. All right, well, if you do have any further questions after this session, please feel free to reach out to the PHL Pre-K inbox and let us know, or you can reach out to your specialist as well to answer any questions. But that's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for joining, and we really look forward to having a great year with you all. Thank you.